Everybody. This week you are going to be working on discussion 12 and on your project 2 response essay. Discussion 12 is meant to help you think more deeply about some of the text that we've read so far, but it's also a bit of a review. What I'm asking you to do in discussion 12 is to look back at your posts from weeks 6 through 8, as well as the text that we've read during that time, and find an idea or a passage in one of these texts that you want to respond to. You've already done that in some form, of course, in most of your responses that you've done over the past 3 weeks. But now it's time for you to really home in on something that you found particularly significant or puzzling or moving or surprising or revealing or displeasing, whatever. You're going to notice if you open discussion 12 that in my example to you, I responded to Del Valle's call for a language revolution. So I wrote that I find that idea really inspiring and necessary. My response to her idea is that we need a language revolution in the classroom. So I agreed with her, but I also added to her idea a bit. I wanted to take her call for language change and apply it to academia in particular. And who knows, maybe that dare that she concludes her poem with would be a little bit more risky if academic language actually allows for more of her style of tongue tactics. So I could see, if you look at my example, that some of the authors we've read would likely support a change of attitude toward academic language. And I can think of one author in particular that might also challenge that demand. If I were to complete discussion 12, I would write about those authors using author names, titles, specific text references, and page numbers when they're available. And then I would show how those authors support or challenge my claim. I hope that you can kind of see my example in discussion 12 as a sort of short version of what you're going to be doing yourself in that discussion. One thing, though, that is essential to include in discussion 12 and in your response essay is your own response. I think that you could see from my example that it'd be easy for me to leave that out. I could simply say, I agree with Del Valle, and then I would show what authors support my idea and who challenges it, and think, all right, I'm done. But please do not leave it at that. If you really want to fulfill the spirit of this assignment, and let's say if I wanted to do that with what I had written in discussion 12, I would have to tell my readers why I agree with Del Valle and want to extend her idea, and why and how I've come to find her idea inspiring and necessary. So that means you'll need to hear from me, and you'll have to learn a little bit about me. What experiences have I had that have pushed me in this direction? What is it specifically that I find so inspiring, and why? What is it about me that makes me respond so? And why would I choose a word like necessary? What have I thought, read, experienced, etc., that would make me argue for that? Those are the kind of ideas I really want you to include in discussion 12 and in your essay as well. So you notice I said, what would about me would make me argue for a claim that is one that sort of agrees with Del Valle? Argue was a good word to use there, because I think if you look at my examples in the discussion 12 assignment, you would see that they would lend themselves really readily to an argument essay. In response to the text I'm discussing. We've seen at least two of those, right? You read Dissenhoff's essay, Sweet Surprise, earlier in the quarter. And this unit, you also read Vershawn Ashanti Young. And he wrote in an argumentative style as well. Young's argument, in fact, is in direct response to Stanley Fish's blog post. So you can certainly write your own argument essay in response to these texts. And if you do so, you'll be able to use some of the moves you analyzed and wrote about in his article, Should Writers Use Their Own English? However, you might also decide that you want to write a more reflective or analytical essay, and that's great too. So let's say your response to a certain work might be that it's really powerful. You wouldn't necessarily be making an argument to prove to someone how powerful it is to your readers, for instance. Instead, you would likely be reflecting and analyzing why you see it that way. And you'd use some of the other texts we've read so far this quarter to help you understand your own response and complicate it. So before you submit a final version of Discussion 12, will you please read through my discussion about Kaya Little's response to tongue tactics and her response to Del Valle? That is in the announcement from last Friday. So I wrote about something that Kaya noticed in Del Valle's poem. She explained Del Valle as eating her anger. And I thought, wow, that is a powerful enough image to reflect on for an entire essay. So if you look back to Friday's announcement, you'll see the kind of questions I might have asked myself or Kaya to develop that idea. And that would be an instance of a passage or an idea from a text leading you to a more reflective and analytical essay rather than an argumentative one. And that's fine. If your essay looks more reflective than argumentative, that can be great because, in fact, we often allow ourselves to be more open and thoughtful when we feel we don't have to prove a point, and we allow ourselves instead to explore it and its implications. I will likely not be responding to your Discussion 12. I'm going to be spending most of my time this week responding to the assignment that you submit to me titled Something I Can Respond to, which may look very similar to what you write for Discussion 12, and that's totally fine. I expect that. So, what that means is that your response to the peer just below you in the discussion forum for Discussion 12 is really, really important. Your job when responding to that peer is to help open up their minds to some possibilities that they might not have seen. So, which parts of their post do you see as most generative or sort of most itching to be explored or most significant? Tell them that and explain why. Also, this is your chance to point to particular passages in the text that you've read that you think your peer should look at more closely. So what texts do you know about that we've read this quarter that will support their ideas? Maybe texts that correlate with what they're claiming? But also, what texts have you read that might complicate their ideas as well? Easy answers are usually kind of boring. So what is it that might make your peer's response more complicated and thus more complex and interesting? Finally, will you please wait to respond to your peer in Discussion 12, that person that's just below you in the discussion forum, until Tuesday morning? There might be some folks who have already submitted to Discussion 12 who might need to go back and edit to add some of the things that I've been discussing here in this video. This is also a great week to meet with a writing tutor via Zoom or email. Here's my suggestion to you. Will you please ask the tutor that you're meeting with or writing to if they see enough of you in your own paper? Are you including yourself and your ideas in there, or are you simply summarizing other authors? I really hope that you'll have fun with this assignment. You'll have plenty of time to work on it this week. I look forward to reading the Something I Can Respond To assignment, which I imagine will be heavily influenced by Discussion 12. Take care and have a great week.